I want to talk about the three most common things that I see as problems or issues in using a box call. A lot of times I'll hand a box call to someone and see them make these three mistakes, which affect the sound of the call tremendously. And so just want to address them quickly so that if you're new to box calls, you'll be aware of these mistakes and can avoid them. The first one is just simply the grip. The grip has a lot to do with the sound that the box call makes. I always encourage guys to hold box calls kind of on a corner, on an end like this, so that the box itself you're holding as lightly and on the end to leave as much of the soundboards open as possible, so that the soundboards have all the vibration that they need to produce the quality of sound that the box call was made to make. Also, you wouldn't maybe think of it as much, but the top, the paddle, has a lot to do with the sound of the call as well, of how it affects the sound that's being produced. It's a part of that. And so what I suggest is that you hold the box call paddle lightly and gently. And so either holding it like this between your thumb and your index finger, or a lot of times I'll hold it between my index and middle finger. Just hold it lightly so that it allows the paddle itself to vibrate and it doesn't dampen it too much. And you can see the quality of that pretty easily just with the call, just by making calls with a light grip and a firm grip. For instance, listen to the difference of this as opposed to, and that's about the same amount of pressure on it, and it just changes your pitch tremendously. And the reason for it is it's dampening it the harder you hold it, plus it's making the paddle much more rigid, so it's coming across at a more unnatural pattern against the soundboard that is just affecting the sound in that way. So let it just glide across gently without too much pressure. That leads me to the second problem that I see most often, and that is the amount of pressure that's applied to the paddle against the soundboard. And so a lot of guys will grab it and they think that they need to really apply hard pressure to the soundboard, and they get that high squeaking sound rather than the sound that the call's tuned and designed to make. And so pressure is important. You want it to just slide across the board with a gentle pressure, just enough to produce the volume that you want, and let the call itself make the tone. In other words, the calls, if a well-made call can just slide across the board and while it's not making a sound that you want to use in the woods, it's producing the basic tone, the sound, the high to the rollover to the lower pitch in the pitch range that you want for the call. And so all you're doing is just adding the right amount of pressure and speed to it to produce the quality call sound that you want. The third thing is also somewhat connected to pressure, but it's just because of the way the call's made and the way the soundboard is designed. And that is, I see a lot of guys grab these calls and swing way out. They just swing too far. And so they're coming at the call like this. And the calls are not designed for that for several reasons. One of the main ones is just movement. We want the calls to be really a tight movement is all that's needed to minimize the amount of movement in the woods when you're hunting. And so you don't need to swing way out. What you're doing there is you're hitting the call at the top, the front part and the top part, rather than using that middle to the lower part here of the soundboard that it's tuned for to produce the sound that you want. So those are the three most common mistakes I see. If you're doing any of those things, just eliminate doing that, and it'll improve your calling.